Hello, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. And wherever you are in this wide, wonderful world, you are very welcome to the Global Sales Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cooper, the sales relationship coach. What does that mean? It's actually all to do with high performance. We're talking today on the podcast, and each time we have a podcast, we look at high performance strategy. We look at psychology. We look at lots of different avenues in around sales, leadership, and so much more. So I like to speak with extraordinary thinkers, innovators, bold leaders, and explore what they do, but also to give golden nuggets forwards. So to help the listeners here, inspire them to actually do something different, whether it's related to the latest trends. It's all about performance and sparking off passionate, organic conversations. That's what I always like to do in the area of sales. So my guest today is Tony Morando. Have I pronounced your name correctly?
You said it perfect, Jason. Good morning. Or good afternoon, evening, I should say.
Yeah, good afternoon or evening. But that's what happens in the global world now, and we're connected so much easier. So a little bit of synopsis about you, and then I'd like you to talk a little bit more in depth about who you are and what you do. Tony is the Chief Sales Officer at World Emblem, the #1 emblem producer on the planet. That's a good boast. We have over 1,400 employees around the globe, 8 manufacturing hubs spanning the US, Mexico. Now, Tony's story isn't one of shortcuts or overnight success. He began his career knocking on doors. Literally, I know that one because I've done exactly the same. Through relentless drive, deep curiosity, and commitment, and a people-first mindset. He's been promoted several times, over 5 times at World Emblem. Today, he now leads a global sales force and service operation, inspiring teams to perform at their peak potential. Tony, could you dive a little bit deeper into that? Because I'm curious about that and what you've done. You sound like you work with a huge amount of people. So what is your role now? What is it you actually do?
Excellent question. So first, thanks for having me, Jason. My current role is Chief Sales Officer at World Emblem. So right now I run several different teams that are really all revenue generators. So from customer service to inside sales to our retention service team to our outside development team, with a focus of really just top line revenue. Our job is to make sure that the customers continue buying at existing levels or higher, as well as prospecting for new potential partnerships or new potential relationships.
So with all of that, what methodology do you use in order to keep on top of the latest trends that are out there?
Yeah, so I think this really stems from our senior leadership team. We're the type of team that leans into technology. We don't kind of bear away from it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're really kind of focused now is leaning into AI. I mean, there's a lot of conversation that it's a hot topic that everybody's talking through.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses are afraid, right? So a lot of them will not actually utilize the tool or they don't understand it. Whereas we're mandating monthly courses on all leaders within the business, using Chat GPT and Grok and others to kind of really force just the hand of learning the applications. And we're spending quite a bit of money of building it into the business. So leading into the tech is definitely something that, as a leader of the revenue team, that we're pushing, because honestly, people are saying it's going to replace jobs, and we think it's just going to enhance them, specifically on revenue generators, right?
Yeah.
So that's been really the biggest topic, I would say, this year, with a focus of also kind of just revamping strategy playbooks based on how the market is evolving, because it's been a wild year with just what we're seeing from tariff conversations to buyers and perspective, and really that's making us adapt our strategy almost monthly based on politics in the U.S. administration right now. So
Yeah, that's probably quite interesting in itself. But let's push that to one side, because I've always been told in any sort of conversations, never speak about politics or religion. Always push that to one side. We know what that's doing to the market and maybe doing to the economy, but let's think of something else, because I'm curious about the AI. Everyone I speak to now is talking about AI. There was a conference yesterday that I was at, and It was the Dublin Tech Summit, and that was all to do with AI. Everyone was talking about AI. I'm using it a lot. But with regards to what you're doing, what is your learnings and success rate with using this space right now? Because we're actually at that top part of it now where we're all utilizing it, but it can be a little bit blind as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's moving at such a rapid pace. So we had our annual summit, which we bring all our executive team and our revenue generators, anybody that's part of revenue marketing, into our Mexico facility, and we brought in a group of AI specialists, some of the people, the biggest leaders in that space to talk to us and understand where this is going. The takeaway was that in the next few years, one AI application is going to be smarter than all of humankind together. So
Yep.
it's really interesting when you see, how this thing progresses. But what we've done is we're taking pieces of it, incorporating different parts of the business. One is the end users who are buying product from us, right? So
Yeah.
something from as simple as uploading artwork to creating a design, that's a very manual process today where you have employees that are hand drawing out images, like for example the World Emblem logo. That would be a artist hand drawing it and then using software to tell the machine where to stitch it. Software with AI now can take the image and within a second auto digitize it, auto simulate it, and give the end user the perspective of what that logo is going to look like instantly.
Yep.
Right. So the experience it gets much faster and easier for our customers. And then from an organization, really what I'm using it with my team is simple things like proof checking emails, right? Making sure emails are written well, things are
Yep.
spelled correctly, grammatically, things like analyzing data, which has been a huge help for us. Is we can drop in a list of 6,000 customers with revenue data and have it kind of replot territory mapping, which is something new that we've really kind of been digging into. And the results have been outstanding. I mean, it just simplifies the entire process.
Yeah, I've just dealt into some of that technology there, the likes of Zoom Info, and there's Apollo.io, and there's several other things that I'm testing right now, because you want to find people that are actively searching or in the market right now that have looked for the similar types of products and services to yourself. So that really gives you some really good insights. And for what LinkedIn has said, and I've worked with leaders at LinkedIn, it's deep learning. And that's progressed a little bit more now, because to really understand your customer or your customer's customer is to find out more about them sometimes before you speak with them. And if you can do that now with a little bit more AI switched on, you can have a better, more constructive conversation based on them.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I have a demo later today with, I think you just mentioned Zoom Info is a company we use for prospecting. And, they've added some really nice AI technology into their software. But things like scrubbing a CRM to look at what type of customers you service and then providing you automatically with a list of potential leads based on, your A type customers, right? All this technology is really changing just the way that we're performing, how we operate. And again, it's going back to the playbooks. It's changing. Our playbooks are evolving every single month now based on the new technologies and services coming out.
Yeah, that's what I like. And the way that I like to see AI, it's a project management tool that can enable us to do things slightly quicker than we did before. And I know it's going to get quicker and quicker. Whether it's going to take away some jobs, like, we don't know. We haven't got a crystal ball yet. But if we utilize it as an enabler to help us connect with clients better and make the sales process easier to understand.
Yeah, I agree 100% with the statement. I think it's enabling us to do our jobs faster. I don't ever see it replacing sales. I think people still like to buy from people. I think there's something about that personal engagement.
And that
But
was my question, actually. Yeah, that was exactly where I wanted to go. So tell me a little bit more about that, because I am a big people skills area, and that magic of that human connection is just so powerful.
yeah, I agree. And also, you're able to see things and understand the business, your prospects better. Last week I was in the field with our CEO and our VP of marketing, and really it was not a selling trip. It was more of just a learning trip. And what we try to do is really put ourselves in the space of the reps that are dealing with the customers and the prospects and understand what they're looking for. But, us going into the field and talking face to face, there's just things you will not get from technology, right? Building that relationship or walking into a store and seeing a competitor's product. You wouldn't understand or know that unless you're there in person. And I also think, with the technology moving as fast, people are getting slammed with email marketing and soliciting, and most people are just deleting it. When you're sitting in front of somebody and having that deep conversation, I just think they're more apt to lean your way than.
Yeah, I totally believe that. Ironically enough, I did a 20-minute keynote yesterday on being completely distracted by tech because we're not really how we should be. More now is more connected with people as opposed to be that disconnect, and having that synergy and being in front of a client and a customer, you have that chemistry, or you can build that chemistry, and even seeing people in the flesh and in the eyes and looking into the eyes and all of that sort of stuff makes a massive difference. So looking at that, what aspects of this works well in your organization? Like, we've done the tech stuff, but now we're looking into more of the human connection. What things do you do to inspire your team, but also that you can give some golden nuggets of what works really well for you?
Yeah, so we have reorganized our entire revenue team several times throughout the years. What we've learned is, for us personally, now this, I don't know if it applies to every business, but we took kind of a dual approach. One is building a retention team, right? And the retention team, their sole job is just to focus on making sure we keep all the customers buying at same levels or higher, with a focus of response time, right? And we launched several different softwares to survey customers and get our CSAT scores and really understand what they were looking for. And the most common trait or most common request was response time. Customers just wanted to get responded to quickly with an answer, and we found that our average response time prior to kind of splitting the organization into retention versus sales was hovering around 2 hours. And 2 hours for most people is still really good, but for our industry, it was not good enough. People were looking for 40 minutes, then 30 minutes, then 15 minutes. And honestly, it's getting quicker and quicker. So that was part of it, right? So having a team that really was focused on dealing with customers, and they're responsible for traveling 2 weeks every single month, sitting down with a client and understanding exactly what they're doing, what they're buying, what they're not buying, and why. Right. So that was really important to us in terms of building kind of those strong relationships. And then the other side was realizing that, inside sales, we have an inside sales department, which is fantastic, but they can only drive to a certain extent. Knowing when to take a inside sales customer and pass it to an outside to get visibility and boots on the ground within stores or within customers' facilities, that has really elevated our revenue as well. Because even though we thought we had every account, or we thought we had 100% of the accounts that we were servicing,
Yeah.
in reality, you never have 100%. There's always something that's going somewhere else or another opportunity. And really, we don't identify those until we're in person on site. It's very hard to get that information over a phone or over an email.
Yeah,
And asking the right questions and prying is something that we're constantly working on. But when you're doing it in person, you can physically see the store, you can see the person, you can read them better. So that's really been a big change within the business.
And plus, you can ask a lot more deeper, profound questions because you notice things that are going on. And then you can say, well, what about this? And how does that work? And I just want to take a step back. And I really like what you've said initially about the response time. And you've got the response time down to a reasonable, good level that you can respond back to a client ridiculously quickly, because today's market, everyone is looking for now. You buy on Amazon and you want it delivered straight away, and you're going to get a drone to deliver it to your door and all of that stuff. But for you to do that and get a response in a quick time, not many other services are doing that in a support way, but it seems like you're doing it better. And you're looking at, the way I look at it is feedback to feed forward. Marshall Goldsmith's approach by going, well, what can we do to improve that? And I like that. And then I like the way that you can handle it over from the inside to the outside reps to get that relationship built and build in to find out more about what the client wants. And I really like that. That's really fascinating. Tell us more
Yeah.
about that.
So there's a couple different pieces of software. One I mentioned, AskNicely, which is our CSAT software that we use. So it's an auto-generated survey based on activities within the business, right? So whether it's a logged phone call into our CRM or it's a in-person meeting that gets logged to the CRM, that will auto-generate the survey to go out. And what we do is we kind of customize and tweak the survey every quarter just to make it fresh and interesting. So that was one. And then the other one was a software that we use called TimeToReply. And this was something
Oh,
fairly new about a year and a half ago, which measures the response time of the emails. So this is how we started measuring and then driving results. And it is a KPI that our customer service manager reports back to me on a weekly basis to say, here's how we were for the week. Here's how many emails. Here was our average response time. And that's really been the big focus across now all revenue departments, not just customer service, but outside sales, inside sales, the service team, just everybody's using the same model because we see that from the CSAT, it's the number one thing that customers are asking for. And the number one reason why they buy from us is the response time. So it's definitely a focal point.
So looking at things that are working well, but what's not working well for you, meaning what are you experimenting?
Yeah, so right now, again, tying it back into the AI conversation. So agents, AI agents and AI bots,
That's
we
right. Yeah.
are playing with this heavily right now because we see this potentially getting instant feedback to customers, right?
Yeah.
Rather than now 15 minutes, we want to get it down to 2 minutes or 1 minute. And the way that we do that is building automation with AI agents that has access into real-time data that can respond to customers instantly. Now, we've done some testing with it, and what you said, what's working, not working. Customers still want to talk to a person.
Absolutely. I totally concur with that.
And this has become hard because while people are great, there is a time lag versus something that has the ability to instantly search through a database of 1,000 records and spit out an answer instantly. So it slows down the process, but we're finding kind of that sweet spot of what works and doesn't work there. So I think that's something that, we need to continue to understand and learn from is how do we improve the agents, the sound more realistic or build in some sort of voicing that allows the end user to feel like they're talking to a real person.
Yeah, and I've been playing around with that as well. I'm still trying to get my head around it, and the AI bots now are hopefully there to enable us, and they're looking at making it a little bit more humanized again. And I must, this is my bugbear. It's not really a bugbear because I always feel like there has to be a human-centric approach behind everything that we do. And I know we've already alluded to that. And I always think and believe, and a lot of research that I've done is trust. You have to trust the person, the business, and everything else behind that. And that becomes human.
So you bring up a good point. You always hear people mention that customers buy from people they like. They buy from companies they trust, and you're spot on. We say this all the time internally because we try to change the mindset. Is if a field rep is presenting to a prospect and offers something, or says they're going to get back, we make sure that they deliver on everything they say. Because if you don't, customers don't forget that. And it only takes one instance. There's another saying out there about the reputation. You can do something like 1,000 things well, but that one thing you do wrong is going to burn your reputation for X amount of years. So we're really focused on making sure that, it's not just the response time, but if somebody's promising something or offering something, that they deliver on that.
Yeah, it's the Robert Cialdini's laws of influence and persuasion is commitment. And I'm a massive advocate on that. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And if you
Yep.
can't achieve it, you still tell them that you can't, there's something going wrong, but at least there's communication. There's nothing worse than clients, customers waiting for something. You said you're going to do it by 5 o'clock today, and 5 o'clock goes and you haven't done it. But all the customer wants is to know what's going on.
You're
And I think
100%
that's
right.
so very important.
I could agree more. Yeah, again, it comes back to it's one thing to respond quickly, but it's also to respond with an answer and not just, we've seen some of the things come back where it's, I'll get back to you. And then maybe that response takes now a day or two rather than the 3 minutes or 5 minutes that we're shooting for. So working and constantly training the team to make sure that if that is the case and they don't have an answer, that they still need to close that conversation out, within a reasonable time. They have to make sure that they're not leaving the customer up in the air hanging with an unanswered question.
Yeah, I always like to suggest it's the language that we use to make our own self accountability, saying that I will be doing this at that time, and making a note on your CRM or whatever you use, and that to pop up and go, yep, I will call them at that time, to make that commitment, because people like people and brands, they like trust and they can connect with, and that's all so hugely powerful in today's marketplace.
Yeah, agreed. And I think using a tool like a CRM to stay organized and to schedule follow-up calls, it is so critical. And it's a struggle. Anybody that's managed a sales team or managed a team in general, CRM is always a difficult conversation, making sure reps are logging activities and
Yeah.
follow-up activities. We have programming built into ours where, any opportunity that is created has to have a scheduled future activity. So it kind of prevents people from not remembering or saying they couldn't do it for whatever reason. So that's been a really useful tool for us just to make sure that that conversation continues, or if it's a follow-up call or an answer or something, that there's always something scheduled for a touch after.
That's quite interesting. Question I always like to ask is, if you are interviewing you, what sort of question would you ask about you right now?
Yeah, I think a big thing is how do you keep your culture? So we're fortunate. I mean, I'm fortunate to have a team that has some pretty good tenure. And something I always get asked is, how do you keep your reps? Like, what are you doing to keep the reps on your team? What are you doing for prospecting for new reps as well? Those are kind of the two most common. It's something that I think it's interesting to hear different leaders' perspective, because
Yeah, absolutely.
culture is just a huge, huge piece of, making sure your staff retention is long term. At World Emblem, we were a family business that erupted over a very quick amount of time, right? So when I started the company, we were, not started with the company, we were about 50 employees, one location. In a matter of 10, 15 years, we're now 15 employees, 1,500 employees over, 5 countries. And every year it just gets kind of wild. And the reason behind it is the culture that our CEO is kind of put throughout the business is a very open culture
Mhm.
where it doesn't matter what role you have within the company. You could come to any of our executive team and ask a question, get an answer. We keep it fun. We still keep that family mentality, which is a double-edged sword, because as the business grows, the processes are changing. We're getting a little more structured. And you have to be careful with that, because some of the long-term employees that have been here stayed for the reason that they really like that small culture. They felt
Yeah.
like they were heard, they could contribute. And that's something that even today we really kind of force throughout the culture is, look, everybody matters,
Yeah.
and you could talk to anybody, but at the end of the day, we're going to have, real honest conversations both ways. If somebody's feeling down because they haven't been able to achieve their quota, then we're going to have a conversation about that. And it's one led with empathy, but also, here are the policies and here are the rules and here are the standards that have set. Are we pushing to those standards?
And as you mentioned, culture, I think it's also good to really know your reps as well. Meaning, I know a lot of big words, psychological safety and all of that sort of stuff, which is important. But it's also for the sales managers and the people that you maybe lead with or for, is them, but there's a connection, like a conversation, like what's their, maybe their backgrounds, and if there's something going wrong, you can maybe understand from context that maybe things are not going right for them, but it might not be they might not be hitting their KPIs just because home life is terrible, and
Yeah.
that might be
Yeah.
affecting that. But in order for them to get really self-motivated, to understand them and get them back on track into that area, and I think that's all part of culture. One area, there's a lot of other areas.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on some really important things there. We just tried something for the first time last month, and it's a good point for anybody that's listening that has a outside team of people that are remote. My entire staff is scattered throughout North America. I have staff in Mexico, US, and Canada. So it's hard to get to see people outside of Teams or Zoom or one of these applications that we can do this. But last month we hosted a service training as a group, and rather than having everybody stay at hotels, we rented a house in Fort Lauderdale. We brought everybody together. We basically lived in the house together for 3 days, and that is a very unique experience because you get to know people on a much deeper level, and you also see the team bond in different ways. And a good example was, planning meals. Rather than going to a restaurant, everybody wanted to cook their favorite dish for their team. So everybody was going to the grocery store and helping each other kind of pick things out. And then everybody came to the kitchen and worked together. But it just took it to another level where the team really could understand each individual. As a manager, you got to see it too. I mean, I was sitting back and watching, and it was like the best thing I've ever seen. Everybody was engaged in doing something. And, I think we left that with a bunch of learnings. The biggest one was everybody now knows each other on a deeper level, which means they can go the extra mile to help when needed or understand why people are feeling a certain way.
That is absolutely ideal situation to have. And it's probably be nice to do that regular as and when you can do. But that's a really good point to maybe leave on. It's the culture and it's the people that drive the business. And if they have that intrinsic motivations to want to achieve, and if it's the right sort of environment that they feel like they're supported, well, that's when the magic happens.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. 100%.
Well, thank you so much for today. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Do you have one last thing that you'd like to say as a golden nugget of knowledge or inspiration?
Yeah. Wow, you got me with a good one here. So I think the last thing I would leave off with is something that everybody always talks about, but it's really hard to drive with the team. The whole saying that activity yields results. I am a firm believer. Anybody that's coming to sales, anybody new that's getting into revenue generation, do the work. And it sounds simple, but do the work. Understand that you need to make phone calls, touches, dials. The more that you're touching your prospects, the more likely you're going to succeed. Nobody is lucky. Everybody that, I've talked to many, many different sales teams throughout North America, and every time there's always the conversation, well, Johnny, Tony, Timmy, whoever it may be, is always the number one performer because they have the best territory. What they don't realize is they're doing activities behind the scenes that they're probably not sharing with the team that's yielding that success. So anybody managing a team, just make sure that you keep encouraging your reps to do the activities, and the results will come.
Absolutely. I like that. That's a really good place to finish. So thank you very much, Tony, for today's session. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation as always. You gave us a lot of good golden nuggets of knowledge, inspiration, and different ideas of this evolving world that we're coming into. And it's rapid. It's ridiculously rapid. So you've listened to the Global Sales Leader podcast. I'm your host. Every week, I speak to interesting people from around the globe that can share different insights about where they actually are, and my hope, and I'm sure it will, that everything you're going to apply to your business to help you strive, getting better, bigger results. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Jason.